Good morning. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And here's Rory.
Good morning, St. Johnsbury Academy. Today is Tuesday, February 21st, and it's a white day. Students traveling to Florence today should bring their luggage to the printmaking studio in Morse. We will depart campus immediately after school, leaving Brantview Drive at 3:15. This announcement is for all the boarding students who are participating in the Florida vacation trip next week. There is a mandatory meeting in the Res Life office immediately after school tomorrow, Wednesday. If you are unable to be there, please see Mr. Robillard. If you are interested in playing a spring sport, please complete the email sent to you last week. There is still time as our spring Meet the Coaches will take place on March 19th. Thank you from athletics. Attention international students, any student wanting to take the March 18th TOEFL must register by Thursday at 3 p.m. A link to register for the March TOEFL has been sent to your STJ Labs email. See Mrs. McCaffrey in the guidance office with any questions. Yes, everybody, it's poetry time. Greer Kennedy will be representing our school at the state semifinal Poetry Out Loud competition in Barrie on Thursday, March 9th. That's one day after we return from break. If you'd like to be a fan on the fan bus to cheer her on, please stop by Ranger 110 to pick up permission slips from Ms. McKenzie. We'll leave at 8 a.m. and return at the end of the school day. Are you interested in history and writing or poster making? If you said yes, then Ms. Moran's has the opportunity for you. The Vermont Holocaust Memorial is sponsoring an essay and poster contest. The prompt is, why is it important for students to learn about the Holocaust? All entries are due by March 21st, 2023. Please see Ms. Moran's in Colby 206 or email her at ellen.morans@stjlabs.com for details. Calling all actors, Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat auditions will be in the Black Box today at 3:30. Bring something to sing, be prepared to move, and have a blast with this high-energy musical. The audition info is on the Academy Theater Canvas page and is in front of the Black Box. Go, 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 Joe! Attention juniors, the Social Studies Department is pleased to announce the Boys and Girls State programs for this summer. If you have an interest in politics, leadership, and public policy, this is a phenomenal opportunity. 4 boys and 4 girls will be chosen to represent the Academy at this week-long conference over the summer. While learning about state and local government, delegates will run campaigns, serve in mock government, and set policies for the great state of Vermont. The girls will stay at the Vermont Technical College from June 17th through June 22nd. The boys will stay at Norwich University from June 25th through June 30th. If you have any interests or questions, email Mr. Mantius at peter.mantius@stjlabs.com. Or stop by his classroom during conference period in Ranger 211 to pick up an application. All costs will be taken care of by sponsors and the Social Studies Department. Are you interested in working tech crew for Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat? We need you. There will be a meeting at 4 p.m. today in the Stagecraft room with Mr. Duncan. Please attend if you are interested in helping with set construction, props, costumes, rehearsals, or just want to be a part of the show. Math Club will meet today in Severance 15 for competition, puzzles, and brain teasers. Snacks and treats provided. Be there or be squared. Spring practice for Hilltopper football will start after break. There will be a meeting for all returning players and all new interested players starting at 3:30 in the alumni gym. This meeting and spring practices are open to all St. Johnsbury Academy students. This is a great chance to learn more about the sport and experience a football practice firsthand. Even if you do not plan to play in the fall, but have an interest in the sport, we encourage you to come be involved. At the very least, you'll be getting a good workout in preparation for spring sports. We are Hilltoppers. The Make It Better Club was started to offer SJA students the opportunity to promote grassroots activism through projects that benefit our school, local, and global communities. We've just finished 2 major projects: Valentine's for elderly community members and a mental health initiative with the Recharge Room in the library. If you have an idea about something that will improve your communities, we invite you to come share it after school today at 3:45 in Ranger 208, Mrs. Began's room. New members are always welcome. Hope to see you there. Science Olympiad has a required meeting Thursday after CP in Streeter 241 to set event pairings for the Vermont State Tournament on April 1st. Happy birthday today to Bryn Whitehead and Benjamin Wood. Happy birthday. That's all, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Rory. We have 2 guests today, and first I'd like to invite Ms. Lizotte to the podium to talk about Girls State.
Hi, my name is Shelly Lizotte, and I'm here to talk to you all about the chapel announcement you just heard for Girls and Boys State, a week-long summer program focused on government, law, journalism, and politics. I attended this, as well as Peter Bergman last summer. We were the only 2 representatives from the Academy. And through this program, I was able to meet and converse with so many incredible local politicians, including Becca Ballot, our current representative, while she was on the campaign trail, Molly Gray, our former lieutenant governor, Kitty Toll, a local representative from Danville who served from 2014 to 2020, Representative Becca White, former state treasurer Beth Pierce, Sarah George, Chittenden County's district attorney, who was so incredible for me as I wished to go into a path of law, and she explained many incredible and important aspects about that, and Governor Phil Scott. I was not only able to listen to these influential local individuals talk about their career paths, but I was also able to ask questions which were really beneficial for me and helped me to understand what I wanted to do in the future. This was a really great experience, as in my time preparing for college, I was able to live in a dorm, and I was able to talk to my personal group leader, who was a current college student. She explained a lot about the application process and about what it really means to go to college. Along with the panels, you will be able to hear lots of great advice, and, you'll be able to participate in the drafting and debating of bills at the actual State House as you portray representatives and run for office. If you win, for example, our governor election, you get to shadow the real state governor for an afternoon. I, however, took the lawyer track and had an opportunity where 4 students were given a mock case and able to take to trial and argue before the Vermont Supreme Court Justice Carroll, who gave us really great advice about what it means to be a justice. This is a really fun program, and it looks great on a college application. I highly recommend you sign up, as it's really easy to do so. So go to Mr. Mantius in Ranger 211 to get the forms for Girls and Boys State if it sounds like a good time to you, or you can always come and ask me some questions. Thank you.
Shelby, and I imagine you can ask Mr. Mantius about if you're gender non-binary as well. So I'm delighted and honored to invite Mr. Quinn from the Social Studies Department for a Black History Month speech.
Good morning. I've been asked to speak to you today by the Student Diversity Council in honor of Black History Month. And this is a version of a talk that I gave several years ago. It's imperfect. In the intervening years, I've really started to wonder to what extent focusing on discrimination and the freedom movement continues to center whiteness, even when we're talking about Black history. Most of you are going to recognize this picture. Right, this is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speaking in front of the March on Washington in 1963, giving his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. We see him like this so often. Giant and courageous and wise, someone who's almost superhuman in his abilities and in his brilliance. And it's really easy when we look at images like this to be inspired but also discouraged. Because who among us really can look at a picture like this and think, I measure up? I don't, certainly. Who among us feels all the time like we can be that brave and that gifted and that adored and that wise? And it's easy to look at images like this and believe that change requires superheroes. I remember in the 90s, people in the queer rights movement saying all the time that we just had to wait for our Martin Luther King to show up. And NBMLK hasn't shown up, and we have accomplished some stuff. I want to show you a different picture of this very same scene. This is also from the same speech. The "I Have a Dream" speech is 7 minutes long. And here Dr. King is in the middle of giving his speech. And you notice it's a really different perspective. All of these different faces looking at him with totally different emotions. My eyes are always drawn to the woman right in the middle who's given him some serious side eye. What we can sometimes forget about movements is that there are hundreds of thousands of people who are heroes in their own ways, and in their own ways have been forgotten by history. We forget that there were 7 other people who spoke that day, that they didn't all agree on everything. We forget that backstage, just a few minutes before he was giving this speech, Dr. King and other leaders were arguing with a young radical about trying to make his speech more moderate, because marching through the South like Sherman, even if you add nonviolently to it, is just not the best rhetorical choice. Change is a slow process. Sometimes it's a messy process, but it takes all of us to be courageous in our own ways. And even tiny actions that get forgotten by history can radically change lives. I'm sure you also know Rosa Parks, that one day she decided not to give up her seat on the bus to a white man. Her story is also much more complicated than that. She'd studied and organized and practiced for years before she and her community decided that they were prepared to fight segregation in that way. But today, I want to talk to you about this person, Claudette Colvin. She was 15 years old when she helped to end segregation in Alabama. And Claudette Colvin had a lot of strikes against her. She lived in a very poor family. She was adopted. Her mother was a maid. Her father mowed lawns for a living. They didn't own a car. And Claudette Colvin rode the bus to and from school every day, or the city bus. And on March 2nd, 1955, she was riding home from school, and she was thinking about a paper that she'd written in English class that day about segregation, and particularly segregation in clothing shopping. You've probably heard, right, about segregation on buses, whites in the front and blacks in the back. And in those days, African Americans were also not allowed to do many other things, like try on clothes before they bought them. Happy to take your money, but don't put that on your body and then take it off and leave it here. Take a moment and imagine shoe shopping like this. To go shoe shopping in those days, someone like Claudette Colvin would trace her feet on a paper bag at home, cut out that outline of her foot, and then that's what she would use to try on shoes. Slip that piece of paper into a pair of shoes, feel around. How is this going to feel on my foot for the next year as I'm walking around in it? Claudette Colvin was angry about this injustice. And when a white man got on the bus and asked for her seat, she refused to move and she was arrested. People started to organize a bus boycott around her, like they later did around Rosa Parks. And Claudette Colvin sued the city of Montgomery. But not everyone agreed with this boycott, and most didn't agree with the lawsuit. And not everyone liked Claudette Colvin, and not everyone thought that she was a good enough person for this role. They called her feisty and mouthy and emotional, ways that we still discount people's voices today, particularly the voices of black women. And then they found out that Claudette Colvin was pregnant, and most of her allies abandoned her. And months later, they did unite behind Rosa Parks and held a year-long boycott on the buses of Montgomery. And families like Claudette Colvin's family, poor families who did not own a car, found ways for an entire year to go without using a city bus. And a young preacher who was only 26 years old at the time, ordained just a year before, gave his first speech on civil rights and rose to prominence as a leader of that bus boycott. And if you look really closely at Martin Luther King's very first civil rights speech, the Holt Street Address, you can see him throw some shade on Claudette Colvin when he says about Rosa Parks that nobody could call her a disturbing factor in the community. He's talking about this girl. All the while, Claudette Colvin didn't give up either. She continued with her lawsuit against segregation laws in Montgomery. In a time when African Americans who stood up against white supremacy were often beaten and murdered and bombed and run out of town, fired from their jobs, 16-year-old Claudette Colvin sued the city of Montgomery, testified in open court, and took her case ultimately to the Supreme Court. When the Montgomery bus boycott did end in victory in December of 1956, it was ultimately because Claudette Colvin had won her case in court. By that time, though, Claudette Colvin had been run out of town. She had left Alabama and moved to New York City for her own safety. I want you to take a moment and imagine that. Imagine moving by yourself as a pregnant teenager to New York City because that's safer than being with your family. Change comes from really diverse places, and not everyone in a movement needs to agree with everyone else. And you don't have to be above reproach to demand justice. And people will call you feisty and mouthy and emotional and much, much worse along the way. And even pregnant black teenagers who are pissed off about shopping can change the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Quinn, for that incredible complexity. That's a gift for this morning. Thank you. Okay, everybody. Have a good day out there. Stay warm. And faculty. Thanks.
Yeah, that's me.